My gosh, the lawyers for this piracy site have been cooking. The lawyers for this piracy site have been cooking. Yes, for those that missed it last year, we had a butting of head of two different groups. Yes, one being PCR, which is the company that is the parent company of J18 and JAST USA. For those that don't know, it's a group that will, yes, sells a lot of content, including, yes, H content. And yes, this company was filing a complaint to the California federal court systems about NHntai.net, which, yes, I'm saying the name weird on purpose because YouTube. But yes, basically this website, which hosts a lot of the stuff that they're trying to sell legitimately, they're hosting it for free for everybody. They initially requested a DMC subpoena with Cloudflare in order to get the information of the website owners, but that was kind of slapped back. That was objected by NHntai. And then later on, the PCR dropped a subpoena request instead to decide to do a full complaint at the California federal court. In that, they stated that they host a vast collection of H works, including commercially produced content, most of which, based on information and belief, is shared without proper authorization from the owners. Now, yes, I'm going to stay at first here. Of course, the usual. I am not a lawyer. I'm just going to state my thoughts about this whole process here based on my limited knowledge of the court systems, some of the lingo, how some of the courts kind of decide certain things. Again, not a lawyer. But I do find this extremely fascinating because, yes, NHntai has decided to file an objection. They decided before it gets into the whole process here, they're filing a motion to dismiss this entire thing. Yes, I would probably question initially, why the hell would they even do this? In most cases, a lot of this stuff happens, the takedowns and whatnot, and most of these companies kind of just turn and run. They basically will go off somewhere else, they'll move the hosting somewhere else, they'll put up a new domain, and they move on with their lives. It's not actually often that you have these piracy sites actually fight back. And I think the main reason why is because, yes, they have actually requested to find the information about the actual owners of the website. And so I do feel like there's seemingly a necessity that at least the owners of NHntai have to actually fight against this. So that's the very interesting aspect about all this, which, yes, the defense they've actually come up with is pretty dang solid in a lot of regards. Now, I'm gonna argue in a lot of the cases that I don't think a lot of this stuff will stick, but of course it is always different for each court system, different judges and whatnot, the amount of knowledge they have on some of this stuff, and whether or not some of this stuff would actually stick. I mean, they even have an email where it states permission to actually host their stuff, which I think that is probably the biggest plot twist about all this stuff, that apparently J18 gave them permission to put this stuff on the site. Again, whether this will stick, I question it. I'd honestly very much so question it, but we'll get to that when we get into that. But let's dive into it. First, NH argues that it isn't clear whether PCR is actually the author of all the works. Some official copyright registration records show JAST USA as the author. Although PCR claims it operates under JAST USA brand, the defendants argue that PCR is a separate company and has not provided sufficient evidence to demonstrate that they possess the necessary licenses or assignments for the copyrighted works. They state public records for JAST USA show that it is entirely separate status as a stock corporation with what appears to be a different ownership, i.e., no overlapping directors, offices, addresses, etc. from those shown on PCR's corporate filings, the motion to dismiss alleges. I don't think this will stick. This is probably the first one that I don't think will stick. Even if it is listed as a stock corporation, it doesn't really kind of negate the fact that they are publicly listed as the ownership of JAST USA. They're the parent company of it. Now, there might be some sort of legal loophole there that I'm completely missing, but everything that I'm seeing, it looks as if they are the parent company. I think this is probably going to be one of those things where with a lot of this, what happens, and it happened with the listing that was coming from JAST USA. They're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. Yes, there's a point in which you can throw too much at the wall, but you're trying to throw as much at the wall as possible so that the court system sees, okay, this is something important. This isn't just somebody saying they did this, wah. It's saying, look at all this stuff that we're kind of putting together. We have a case for this. It's showing that they have something to go with it. And on the opposite end, with the defense, in this case with NH, they're going to show that same effort there. And they're going to throw everything possible at the wall. This one, again, based on my limited knowledge, I don't think this will stick. I don't think this has really anything to do with anything. The defense also brings up another copyright concern. They point out that it's not clear what is actually copyrighted. The NH website actually mostly shares images, but some copyright registrations refer to literary works, which might not cover images in question. They state under copyright law, literary works specifically exclude images, they argue. This is critical because plaintiffs not demonstrated any right to sue for copyright infringement as to the images. Again, another one that I think is kind of semantics, and I don't think necessarily will stick. It may come down to an aspect of sort of having to prove that, yes, technically with these specific works, it is images, but it's also text. It is still a literary work. I mean, it's almost like saying that a comic book is not a literary work. I think, again, this is probably just semantics, and I don't think this is going to stick. I don't think this is. I think what they're trying to do here is, again, trying to twist the words a little bit in the court system to confuse what is actually being talked about here. Again, not an expert here. There might be actually something here that actually specifically defines this. But again, I don't think this is actually going to be that interesting for the court system to really kind of humor. Moving on, they also further say the timing of the lawsuit alleged that copyright infringements are barred as the statute of limitation has allegedly passed. This is interesting. In addition, NH believes that some of the copyrights were registered years after the associated images were distributed on the website. This means that copyright for the works were not registered when they were originally uploaded. Maybe not. This won't fly. This is, if I'm reading this right, this is going to be the court system might laugh at this one. In such an instance, the law mandates the plaintiff is not entitled to statutory damages or attorney fees as to this copyright. Plaintiff also cannot show entitlement to statutory damages and or attorney fees on the other basis, such as Section 412, as the works are not copyrighted within 3 months of publication. The motion to dismiss adds. If I'm reading this correctly, they're stating that they posted up on the site, it was there, and then later they licensed it. They got the copyright for it, and thus the statute of limitation doesn't apply. I don't think this one flies, because that's basically like saying, okay, if I were to pirate an anime, and I were to put that anime onto my Google Drive, and then I put that link out for everybody to watch it whenever they want. And then at some point, Crunchyroll licensed it. 3 years later, Crunchyroll licensed that show. They now own the license in the region that I'm in, North America. And then they suddenly go, oh, we now own it. We're coming after you. Take that down. And I can go, I posted it 3 years ago. It can stay up. It's like in perpetuity, it's always allowed to be owned by everybody because we posted it 3 years ago. Again, if I'm reading that right, that doesn't fly. I'm gonna admit, I might be reading that wrong. Now, here's the damning it. This is the one that everybody's probably laughing at, that they literally gave them ownership. Let's see. Finally, NH attorneys also highlight that the representative PCR brands previously granted written permission via email for use of their content and had even explored the possibility of running paid advertisement on the site. One of the emails suggests that piracy helped manga and anime grow in the West. It stated that this isn't a takedown request or a DMCA, offering a collaboration instead. Here's the email. This is super interesting. Let's look at this. It says, allegedly, to hey at NHntaiNet, they do not have the actual from. Why would they not have the from on there? Okay, this is sketch. Why would the evidence not have the email of who sent it? This is sketch. This is absolute sketch. This is hosted, this right here is hosted on animehunch.com, so they may have blurred it themselves. I kind of want to go see if I can find the evidence listing. This is sketch. Why would the evidence have not the from on there? They have the to on there. Sketch. Anyways, reading it, let's just read it. I'm at first value, I'm going to say sketch. If they don't have the from on here, this is evidence submitted to the courts, unless, again, Anime Hunch has blurred it, which is probably could be a possibility here. But anyways, let's assume that the actual evidence in the courts has the from. And maybe whoever posted this is trying to hide their identity to prevent them from getting mass spam right now. Anyways, subject, permission granted to host our content, J18 Publishing. It has two different attachments here for banner examples. To whom it may concern, right from the beginning, I want to stress that it isn't a takedown request or a DMCA. I've spent enough time sailing the high seas myself to know that they are pointless and nobody listens to them anyways. My name is David though you might know me better as Rotoscopic. I'm a scanlator now, serving as a managing editor at the manga publisher J18, publisher of manga like 40 Haras in Japan. I'm gonna say this stuff seriously. Sato Cookies, Netosis Dojinshi, and a couple of others. We also work closely with JAST, visual novel publisher of games like Steins Gate, You and Me and Her, and Sadistic Blood. We know that people don't always have money to buy official releases, or just don't want to pay for them. We just know that we don't want to pay for them. I wish more people would just admit that. We know the only reason for market at all for anime and manga exists in the West is because of piracy. So we're not interested in trying to fight any sites about this stuff. I honestly, and this is like a total side tangent, I don't necessarily think that's true. I honestly don't really think that. I know that the massive growth of it is due to piracy, but I don't think the fandom is because of it. Because we've been watching this show before piracy. Now, granted, a lot of what was happening early on was technically piracy. We just didn't really necessarily see it that way because we were basically just kind of, copying DVDs or VHSs and just kind of passing them around. And it was an early version of that piracy. So I guess it's technically true. That would be an interesting, deeper discussion to get into. However, a few months ago, we were able to strike a deal with the admin of XH about what to do about properties to which we have the rights being uploaded to their sites. When the raw scans, scanlations, or rips of properties to which we own or manage the rights to get uploaded, we're able to slap a banner at the top of it. Like so. I've attached 2 examples of what it looks like in this email. This is a toughie. This is one of those cases where I feel like you, the viewer watching this, most of you out there, would probably look at this and know what this is saying. I look at this and I know what this is saying. I know what David's saying. You know what David's saying. And yes, NHntai.net, they know what this is saying. The plaintiff, the defendant, you and me know what this is saying. But I almost feel like the defendant is hoping the court system, the judge, doesn't know what this is saying. We all know what this is saying. It's saying we know full well, like up the top here, we know this is pointless. This isn't a DMCA or a takedown because we know it's pointless. Nobody listens to them anyways. That's the whole point of all of this, is you go after NH, and guess what happens? You take them down, what happens? It moves to another one. And then you go after that one, and it moves to another one. Which, yes, is the biggest question mark as to why, JAST, PCR, why they're even bothering going after NH. I think it's because they want to unroot who they are and go after them directly. And I think that might be because they might have some tie-ins with the original creators in Japan. They might want to, together, go after them in earnest to set an example. I don't know. I don't know the full details of that kind of stuff, but that could go that direction. Because, yes, what David's saying here, there's no point to this. There's no point in going after you. And again, that's what the email is saying. The email is saying there's no point in even trying to go after these companies. We're just going to offer a deal here where when you post your stuff up there, we can get a banner up there that points people to our stuff to buy it legitimately. That's what the email is saying. It's saying we know we can't stop you, but we're hoping we can pull people to us. That's what the email is saying. It's not saying you have permission to have the stuff up there. Nowhere in here does it say you have permission. It's just saying that when you have our stuff up on there, you will have a banner there that points it to us. Now, it does say in the subject, permission granted to host our content, but any actual legitimate judge or court system would say, how long? Yes, you have this email that in the subject, it says you have permission granted to host our content, but for how long? All permissions and licenses are typically always to a standard of time. And so the court system would probably, if they want to do diligence here, would say, for how long? Again, we know what this is saying. This is saying we can't stop you, so we're going to basically not DMC strike you anymore or do a takedown request. So please put our banner up. Actually, I would probably more list this as being more of effective. Rather than us DMCA or takedown request you, put our banner up on your site so that we can work together here. But again, I don't necessarily see a judge really seeing this and going, this is 100%, forever time granted access to the content on your website. But I can see a lot of very lazy court systems and maybe misinformed judges see this and go, yeah, dismissed. But again, that's really going to ride heavily on proving that this is from them, that this is a legitimate email, that this is a true, real email, and this wasn't just fabricated, which they can technically show proof of that. Because yeah, I can say honestly, this is pretty damning. Will it change anything in the end? I don't think so. I don't think this is like the big explosion right here that's going to end everything, JAST and PCR. It's probably more so a thing of like, yeah, that was pretty stupid looking back on that. But I have to admit, whoever saved this email, if again this is a real email, whoever saved this email, freaking that person's a genius. You're a genius. I mean, granted, most people probably just keep emails for forever, and then all I have to do is do a search for J18. Oh, there's that email right there. I remember that email being sent to us, idiots. But I wonder if this is probably the reason why the lawyers are like, hey, we might actually have a chance here. Good job keeping that email. That's a pretty damn good email right there. Again, you and me and anybody else, the plaintiff and the defendant, they know what this email is saying. It's saying that piracy cannot be stopped. Let's work together. It's not a granted permission forever. And yes, they can revoke those permissions at any point to say, take it down now, which they've technically done by saying, issuing the takedown. So yes, it's not as if J18, even if they grant, let's even say this, even if they gave permission to them back here in 2020 and said, yes, you can have our stuff up on there, just put this banner on there, even if they say that, later on, if they request a takedown, they still have to take it down. This email does not grant them permission to have their content on their website in perpetuity, forever, never. So anyways, my take on that, very, very, very good that they have that email though. I still think that's kind of funny. Moving on, given this alleged permission, as well as other arguments put forth in the motion, NH believes that PCR has no legitimate claim for copyright infringement. Therefore, the case should be dismissed. Very, very interesting. They also claim that if they don't dismiss it, they want to release claims to NHntai, which they claim has not affiliated. Sure. Sure. And that's pretty much it. That was very, very, very interesting. I think even there was also somewhere in there was a claim that they wanted to file a motion of protective order against PCR distributing after the company subpoenaed to have their highly confidential information about the website, including all documents and account records and identification names, email addresses, IP addresses, user history, posting history, basically discovery, basically. This is a lot of discovery stuff. They don't want to have all that information given over to them, which again, I think in the end is probably the reason why PCR is doing it. I'm not 100% sure there. That's just my speculation, is they probably want their information. And this will give them a lot of insights into the companies. And again, that might be a lot connected to other companies, like companies in Japan. They might be wanting to go after them. But we'll see. Apparently, the hearing for the motion of protective order is scheduled for February 12th. PCR distributing is ordered to file opposition by January 22nd. So this is going to keep going. We'll see where it goes from here. But again, I thought it was very interesting, especially the email. I found the email to be very, very interesting. And kind of, I would be curious your guys' take on that. Do you think... Is there anybody out there that really does think that this is damning? Or do you think this is kind of similar to me, where you can probably honestly, if we're being honest here, this probably really doesn't mean really anything, because it is permission. And even if it was permission given, it's not like forever. It's never forever. And it's simply the fact that even if they gave them permission, they can later, revoke that permission and request it to be taken down. And if they don't take it down after that point, then it doesn't make any sense. Plus, this is also contradictory to the other stuff where they're claiming that they don't have ownership of it. But right here, they're claiming they have ownership of it. That's another key thing there. Granted, this isn't PCR specifically. This is J18, apparently a rep working with JAST. That might not float either. But either way, it's interesting stuff in the end. So I'd love to hear from you guys down in the comments down below. What do you guys think of this whole situation? But we'll see. We'll see where the next steps in this saga between NH and PCR/JAST. But anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, hit the like button down below, comment. Let me know what you think of this whole situation. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe before you leave. If you like this content, you want to support channel more, I have links in the description below. Greatly appreciate it, as. Until next time, y'all take care.